Stop the insanity. Get your focus back onto what really matters in life. Your faith, your family, your finances, and your future. Sit back, listen, and change the trajectory of your life. You are listening to the Money for Life podcast. Let's welcome your hosts, Teresa Kuhn and Rick Sapio.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rick Sapio, and we're here again for another episode of Money for Life, and I'm with my partner, Teresa Kuhn. We're going to talk about Ohio, the great state of Ohio. And in preparing for this podcast, we thought, let's just see what they have to say about Ohio. And there's a lot of different opinions on Ohio, which is a technique to make your life easier, better, more efficient. And it stands for only handle it once. Ohio, only handle it once. And it seems like, in life today, when people know they should make a decision, they keep revisiting that decision day in and day out, sometimes for months or years. Instead of handling it once, they handle it sometimes hundreds of times, revisiting and revisiting and revisiting. And Ohio's been a lifesaver for me on many levels. And I've taught my wife and kids this technique, and I say it all the time. And now one of the fights in my home is, I hate Ohio. Stop saying Ohio. Because, you come home, you take your shoes off, you can put them where they go in the closet, or you can leave one in the living room and one in the bedroom on the floor. And you can handle it 6 times. But only handle it once means when you have something that you're doing, just do it instead of having an interim step. It's like you're eating dinner and you leave the table instead of finishing your dinner, taking your plate, going to the garbage, wiping off the food on your plate, and potentially even putting it in the dishwasher. That's handling it once. Or you could just leave it on the table and have somebody else move it to the sink, and then have somebody else complain about having to go from the sink to the dishwasher. So what are some techniques that you use in your life, Teresa, to express Ohio?
Well, that's pretty funny. Your kids are complaining about Ohio. I can so see it because there is an internal struggle. I think, I don't know. You know how I'm into thinking that they've programmed us to be a certain way. And when I was growing up, there was so few people who identified as ADHD or ADD. It's pretty funny, Rick. I think in the 80s and 90s, there was a stigma around ADD. If you had ADD, you really didn't want to admit to it. Or those who did, you looked at them a little weird. Because who wanted to be ADD? Who wanted to be out of focus and not able to make decisions and just have a bazillion things going on and never being able to sit down and tackle one thing at a time. And everyone, with very few exceptions, I don't know that I know anybody who is not ADD these days. And Ohio was a technique that a long time ago, those that worked with people who identified as having ADD, ADHD, and they'd go into see a clinician, a psychologist, it was part of the mental health psychology discipline. It was one of the techniques. Hey, learn to only handle it once. That's it. And when you've got paper, when you've got tasks that you need to do, when you need to pick up your space, your room, when you need to go run errands, just decide, do it next. And I think most of us live in purgatory most of the time. And purgatory is that gap of time between when you have to do something and until you actually get it done. It's just purgatory. It sits in the back of your mind. It's like a cloud that follows you around, like little Charlie Brown, in the Charlie Brown cartoon, the Charlie Brown's friend who went around with a little cloud behind him of dust. It's like it follows you everywhere until you get it done. And it is so freeing when you got crap that you need to do and you're just decisive and you just click through it one by one by one.
And Ohio could mean also eliminating things. Sometimes handling something is just eliminating it, because unfortunately we live in a world now where we just have way, way, way too much going on. And we're constantly adding things. What you're referring to about getting done is those big decisions like, should we buy a new house, or should we move, or should we get another job or start a company? Those massive decisions that linger and linger and linger. But I would argue that most of the small decisions you could just eliminate right off the bat. Just don't do it. We've talked about in the podcast about an acquaintance of mine who decided to build a house. And it was a laborious 2-year-long nightmare that almost destroyed his marriage, because his wife and him, in their brilliance, decided to build a house that was an hour from his work. and he's a busy entrepreneur, and was an hour from her work. But the hour was not between the two of them. It was actually like a triangle. They both had to drive an hour to get to the building site. And when it was done, they were going to each have to commute an hour each way. And I think that that is just a big fat no. Like, why would you do something like that? It makes no sense. And I think a lot of it has to do with our inability to be consciously aware of what we're actually deciding to do. There's no consciousness. So excitement and thrill and boredom, the relievement of boredom, is what's clouding our judgment. And so a lot of O.H.I.O, when you say only handle it once, it could mean just terminate. Don't do that, because those things we say yes to often are those massive problems in our lives later. And my wife and I went through this recently. We were going to buy a lake house, and we went back and forth and back and forth. And I finally said, if we bought a lake house, what would we do every weekend? And my wife said, what do you mean? We'll go to the lake house. I said, but how are we going to do all the other stuff that we do on weekends now? And then it was like, oh, so we're going to have to give that up. Well, do you want to give that up? No. So we put conscious thought around a hard decision like that. And we handled it. It was done. We never talked about it after that again. All right, everyone. And now this is a message from our sponsor, the 100-Year Savings Solution. Teresa and I do these podcasts because we are very committed to you having wealth in your life. And that wealth is long-term wealth. And how do you get wealth? You get wealth by employing the barbell investment strategy, in which you focus on creating a foundation of wealth using specially designed whole life insurance from a mutually owned insurance company. And you're going to get higher returns with far less risk. I call it risk-free, but it's far less risk than you can get anywhere else in the world. And once you have that financial foundation set up, the rest of your wealth creation is almost automatic. Go to www.100yearsavings.com.
So I think one of the things when it comes to productivity, and we're both very busy business owners and we've got a lot of stuff going on. We have commitments to our family, commitment to our relationships, commitment to our work and our business and our clients and our advisors. There's so much commitment. And early on, I figured out in my career that I needed help. I needed somebody to help me do those so-called mundane things that were so important in terms of getting life to be efficient and run well, but that I didn't necessarily have a gift for, nor do I have a liking of it. Running to the grocery store and running errands and doing the stuff, like if you think about all the stuff that it takes to just exist, things that need to be done, phone calls that need to be made. I'm not talking about business. I'm just talking about life. Oh my goodness, it's tons. And I remember a long time ago, I used to complain to my husband, like a couple hours after making phone calls of just mundane life stuff. It's like, how do people get anything done? Because there were just tasks in life that needed to be done, but it just felt like it sucked up so much of my time. So I hired a personal assistant. And this was a couple decades ago when it really wasn't in to have a personal assistant. And today I've got someone whose name is Allie, and Allie right now is downstairs building me this little table to sit next to me in my office. And she's run to the market. She ran to the printer because I've got a couple employees that are doing trainings today that needed something printed. All these things that need to be done and take up so much time. Now, I will tell you, Rick, when I feel like going to the store or I feel like doing an errand or doing something, I do it because I feel like I want to do it. I want to get out and about or, have time to myself. But the regular day-to-day stuff, if it wasn't for that system and process that I've got with Allie today, I don't know where I'd be, to tell you the truth.
So that's a great example of leveraging your time. And instead of even handling it at all, you just hand it to somebody else who is much better suited to do that. It's ironic that there's a lot of things that we hate to do, but some of the things we hate to do, other people love doing them because that gives their life meaning. It's a hard concept to wrap your mind around, but that's part of being a leader, is to find people that are better than you at certain things. And in your case, it's ironic, but there's a lot of people that love running errands. That's where they get meaning. So it reminds me of a family, a very busy family with 4 young kids that we knew. And the wife was always cool, calm, and collected. And what I discovered is something that transformed our family. They had someone come to their house at 3 o'clock every afternoon, get the food for dinner, cook dinner, clean up after dinner, and bathe the kids when they were young. And that was time when the kids wanted mommy mommy and daddy's attention for homework and just face-to-face time. Because as you've heard in this podcast, the average one-on-one conversation face-to-face between a parent and a child in America per day on average is less than 1 minute, less than 60 seconds per day in one-on-one face-to-face conversation, not barking at, not yelling at while they're in the back of the car, not talking to 4 kids at a time, but one-on-one meaningful conversation, less than 1 minute a day. And this family was really good at that. And they just discovered the secret. Hire a neighbor who loves to cook and shop. And for $10 an hour, that's all they paid. This person took care of that 7 nights a week. Isn't that incredible? So that is an example of handling it once. So they handled dinner for 5 years with one decision. And they ended up getting lucky because it happened to be a retired neighbor who used to own a restaurant. And there's probably thousands of people like that, especially today, all around you that could do that particular thing. But what Teresa and I are talking about hopefully should make you think about your day and every moment of your day as you're doing things in the moment. Think, what should I do with this to only handle it once? And an hour doesn't go by in my life where I'm not thinking, I'm about to put a glass down. Like, oh, why would I put the glass down here? Let me just bring it to the kitchen. I'm about to ignore an email. Why don't I just delete it or respond to it? And things like that. And that happens hundreds of times a day. So O.H.I.O for me is a philosophy on how I just go about my day, and it helps me be way more efficient and have more time for my kids and my wife and my business, quite frankly.
I love that story of your neighbor and how they manage their house and what a difference it makes, I think, for those kids looking back in their childhood and remember mom and dad as not being stressed at night and giving them attention and being there for them. And it also teaches them something as well. It teaches them leverage. It brought somebody else into the family, into the household. With Allie, it's an absolute win-win. She's a single mom, has 3 little boys, and she's got time between 9 and 1 on most days to come and help me. Oh my gosh, what a gift. And when she can't make it, it's not like it's the end of the world. It's not like she's got a job, a corporate job that expects her to be there right on time and be there the entire time. We've got flexibility because frankly, most of my things, unless it's an emergency, she doesn't get to the store today, she can get to the store tomorrow. And so that flexibility has been a win-win for us. And she's somebody that's worked with me now for several years, and it's been beautiful. And for Allie, it was someone else. And it's not because of I'm a busy entrepreneur today. I think I will have an Allie in my life for as long as I live. And a really cool thing has happened as well. My husband has started using Allie. He was always resistant to using the assistant that we had in the house. And our son has learned in the last couple of years to use our assistant for stuff that really isn't important. He's a busy entrepreneur. He understands the worth of his hour, the time that he's got available. He's better off training others or going to make another sale, or going to manage a job that they're working on, running around, running errands. Like you said, Rick, that's so true. Because there are people whose purpose it is to serve a family. Just like your friend, I'm sure that was a total win-win for that neighbor who used to own a restaurant and now he gets to serve a family and participate in that family's life. What a beautiful thing.
So what's incredible about finding people that like to do the things that you don't like to do is oftentimes they're very inexpensive, because a lot of times these people are not driven by money, or they're independently wealthy, or they're retired, or they have what they need, or they're on a pension. And so you often can get them for minimum wage or less because they just like helping. We had someone helping us for a long time who refused to take any money. And so it's ironic that we think that our time is so valuable, and it is, then why aren't we looking at our time in terms of dollars and cents? If you make $100,000 a year and you work 2,000 hours, that would mean that you're making about $50 an hour. So anything that you do that you can get somebody to do for less than $50 an hour, it's actually a win-win for you. And the stuff that somebody else is much better than you at, like maybe your neighbor who will cook for your family for $10 an hour, that might be a massive win because of all the other benefits, like more time with your kids. So look at it from that perspective. How much are you worth? How much is your time worth? How much would you have to pay somebody else to do some of those things that you shouldn't be doing or don't want to do? And then the other things that no one should do, those things that you should eliminate immediately, those are the real bugaboos, because those are the ones that add so much much stress to our life. And sometimes you don't even have to do it. And I'm reminded of a story about 20 years ago. I had a CFO in my company who was completely overworked, was stressed all the time. She worked like 80 hours a week. And I remember when we had to terminate her because she was constantly complaining. It was really a tough situation. And she was very detailed in everything she did. And so when we went to hire somebody else, I decided to do a project plan for what this person did. And it turned out there was not a single thing that this person did in the 80 hours a week that she worked that was helpful or relevant to the company. 100% of it was automated, or we just didn't do it at all. And we elevated the position from, she was a CFO, but she was really just a controller, but we elevated the position to CFO. So they became more of a financial strategist inside the business. But the point was, this person was set in their ways and they were doing unbelievable menial tasks in accounting that no one needed to do. And it's almost hard to believe what I'm saying, but it was really true. She would make double and triple copies of everything. A lot of her job was filing things away in a physical file and then saving them somewhere else and checking on people and snooping on people and doing just bizarre tasks. So I would say that that's a metaphor for all of us. How much of our waking hours is a complete and total waste of time that we shouldn't be doing?
Well, I think with that question, we can end it right there. And that's something I'm going to think about today as well. How much of my day am I doing things that really I can just eliminate and decide not to do them anymore? So with that, Rick, as always, a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed the latest episode of Money for Life. We really enjoyed putting it together for you. Have a great day.
You have just experienced Money for Life. Implement these strategies today and create a life by design. Have a blessed day.